Welcome to our D4M sit down conversation about the impact of Industry 4.0 on rail manufacturing.
As always, I'm your host, Gene DeRoche, and I'm here today with D4M International's Enterprise Account Executive.
Ashley Iannuzzi. But before we get into the conversation about DM, let's start off by giving the viewers at home a little bit more context about your professional experience on the subject.
So, for the viewers at home,
Can you start off by telling us what your professional experience is and when you started to notice the changes that were taking place and brought on by Industry 4.0?
Absolutely. My background for about the last decade and a half has been in the manufacturing industry. I've been an account executive and an outside sales business development professional, specifically within freight rail and passenger rail, which are both very highly regulated federal government entities. I first started in a rail career with freight rail across North America as a junior project manager. At the time, this was back in 2005, automation of anything that was IoT was new, meaning it had only been adopted in the last, say, decade and a half prior to that. I learned early on, even with the phase of tech at that time, that technology was going to have to be put at the forefront of this industry. And I can say since 2005, almost 20 full years, I've seen a lot of advancement, an always growing process of innovation, experimentation with new technologies, lowering barriers of entry through industry experience, and improved documentation. Things like safety, quality, genealogy have been at the forefront of making digital manufacturing's footprint as wide as it has become in the last 15 years or so.
Since your professional experience is primarily in the rail industry, and since you are the first guest on this show to have a background in that area, can you talk to us about how manufacturing is different in that industry and how Industry 4.0 could potentially improve that sector?
To get into such highly regulated federal government entities in North America, such as freight and passenger rail, there is always a fine line that you have to make sure you never cross. You cannot plan, build, or move anything on a train without making sure that the strict regulations are followed. Every aspect of the rail industry must adhere to the rules set forth by the FRA, which is the Federal Railroad Administration, and the STB, which is the Surface Transportation Board. Everything from a freight car with consumer packaged goods or an auto rack that's 3 stories tall full of brand new cars. Everything has to be balanced, loaded, inspected, and maintained according to stringent regulations. As to how Industry 4.0 will help the rail industry, it is only a continuation of what the rail industry has needed for years. Digital manufacturing is part of an automation evolution with the most up-to-date technology available. There are so many different rules, regulations, and documentation to keep track of that the industry would really benefit from automation of any kind. Although a lot of the big major topics for the rail industry, they differ a bit between freight rail and passenger rail. The standards are still very similar across the board. When you're now moving people and not just freight and cargo, there's an added layer of safety regulations, as you can imagine. So, to summarize, every step within the rail industry, from design to planning to production and to its eventual transportation, has a lot of regulations to keep track of. And Industry 4.0 technology is a great way to keep it all in one place.